Well, the FSU situation is officially off the rails. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got some updates coming out. Could they possibly boycott their New Year's Six bowl game, the Cotton Bowl against Georgia? I don't think that's going to happen because of the money, but I do think it's going to be a de facto boycott with a lot of pretty much all of their top players sitting out, making the game completely meaningless. I'm going to get into all of it. Let's begin. College Football Playoff Committee shuts down contact page after outrage over FSU's snub. So apparently Florida State fans were bombarding the contact page to the point where they had to shut it down. Ron DeSantis asks for $1 million for Florida State to sue the College Football Playoff Committee over snub. It's always strange when you bring politics and sports together like this. It's just, sue them over what? I guess you could investigate whether or not ESPN and the committee colluded together to make sure Alabama was in over FSU. That's kind of the only argument you could make in terms of an investigation against the committee. But in general, guys, this whole idea that ESPN is colluding against the ACC, they're obsessed with the SEC, they had to get one team into the playoff. There's a number of problems with that argument. The first one being ESPN also controls majority rights to the ACC. They have the ACC network. The ACC championship game was on ABC. So, and the other thing, everyone's like, well, the ratings. Honestly, if you look at it, you could make the argument that Florida State versus Michigan would get higher ratings than Alabama versus Michigan. Now, obviously, it doesn't help that Florida State would have their backup quarterback, and going into that game, there would be a lot less hype. But in general, it's not like people are trying to make this seem like it's Ohio State versus Washington, where obviously Ohio State has a 10 times bigger fan base than Washington. Let's say Ohio State goes 12-1, Washington goes 13-0, and they put Ohio State in over Washington. Then you could argue, okay, this is based on ratings, this is based on TV revenue. That is not this situation. It's not like Alabama is going to blow Florida State out of the water in terms of ratings. The only way that would happen is because Florida State would be starting a backup quarterback and no one is really all that jazzed up to watch the game. I just think this was a situation where, if we go in, let's just say they choose FSU for the third spot or the fourth spot, whatever, and we go in and you're talking about, you're previewing a Florida State versus Michigan game. I would basically be grasping at straws as to why I think Florida State could potentially keep it close. So it's just a judgment call by the committee, and this is why we have the committee, because there's nuance involved. By the way, the people talking about the BCS model, and we need to go with the BCS model, the BCS model would have had Alabama and FSU in, and it would have left Texas out. And how outraged would people be about that? Because Texas beat Alabama on the road early in the season. So there's no perfect system, but I do think this whole idea where it's all conspiracy, ESPN hates the ACC, they're against it. ESPN owns the majority of the ACC. It doesn't make any sense. And then you also do have Florida State. This is their second best receiver, Johnny Wilson, skipping the bowl. He's not even going to be a first round pick and he's still skipping it. We'll have to see what happens with Keon Coleman, who obviously is very likely to be a first round pick, but it does seem like it's trending in the direction to where Florida State, all of their top starters that are eligible for the draft are going to opt out. The spread in this game is going to go to 17 or 20. I would say right now, if you can get in on, well, I don't know what this, maybe the spread's updated, but the last time I saw it was Georgia minus 14. Seems like an absolute auto lock. I do not think FSU is going to boycott, but you can see this, that Florida State boycott rumors are swirling after the Orange Bowl cancels the press conference. Many feel FSU could be staging a boycott after their snub. If I'm FSU, I just don't show up, but I wait till kickoff to mess with the TV and ticket sales. I do think FSU will show up for this game, but again, it's going to be anecdotal considering all of their top starters are going to be out. They're not going to be playing, and it's just going to be a complete charade. The game is going to get terrible ratings. FSU is going to lose, but FSU can still have the narrative that, oh, we were boycotting. We didn't want to try. We should have been in the playoff. Obviously, their fans are very mad, and they have a right to be be mad, and that's why the 4-team system is not perfect, because you have a year like this when FSU certainly should have the ability to play for a national title. They went undefeated in a Power 5 conference, although I do think people have to understand, this is another thing I wanted to talk about, the idea that a conference championship is the end-all be-all is ridiculous. It lacks nuance. You have to understand, conferences are not created equally. So winning the SEC and beating Georgia is a lot harder than winning the ACC and beating Louisville. The idea that conference championships are all weighted equal, like, oh, FSU has one, Alabama has one, Michigan has one. No, it's based on how hard your conference actually is. You know, so that's just another thing you have to take into account. That's why I saw people wanting an 8-team playoff and saying we need to value conference championships more. No, if anything, we need to value conference championships less, because the conferences are completely lopsided now, with Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC and all the good Pac-12 teams going to the Big Ten. So you're having conferences that are not equal, schedules that are not equal. The ACC is going to be weaker. The Big 12 is going to be significantly weaker. You know, all conference championships are not created equal. That's what I'll say on that. And then I did want to get to this, look at this, these QB portal predictions. And I will say, this does seem to be, a lot of these seem to be where it's kind of trending right now. Riley Leonard to Notre Dame seems almost like a done deal. I think he's on day 2 right now of his 2-day visit to Notre Dame. That seems like it's pretty much sealed and delivered. There was a rumor that maybe Ohio State was also interested in Riley Leonard. Let me just say this about Riley Leonard. If Ohio State wants Riley Leonard, Ohio State will get Riley Leonard. If you're Riley Leonard, you're not choosing Notre Dame over Ohio State if you're a quarterback. That is a horrible decision, especially considering Notre Dame just lost all of their receivers. So I really don't think Ohio State is seriously considering Riley Leonard, because, again, if Ohio State wanted Riley Leonard, they would get him. So I think maybe they put out a feeler for him, but it does look like he's going to Notre Dame. Dillon Gabriel possibly going to Oregon. Yeah, so Dillon Gabriel, the rumor is possibly Mississippi State because of a connection, a coaching connection, Oregon or USC. Right now, I would agree, Oregon seems like the most likely option. They are the favorite. They were the reported favorite. Will Howard possibly going to USC doesn't make a ton of sense to me, unless Malachi Nelson is not the real deal and Lincoln Riley is not sold on him. But obviously, Will Howard is at this stage in his career where he wants to be guaranteed a starting spot. I don't know if he's going to get that assurance at USC. Cam Ward does seem like he's trending to Ohio State right now. I have heard that Miami also possibly could be in the mix. It makes perfect sense. They do need a top quarterback. DJ Uiagalelei going to FSU. That's an interesting rumor. I've heard Maryland as well, but FSU could certainly be a suitor for him. And then Kyle McCord going to Miami. So the rumor with McCord was Nebraska yesterday, but also Miami possibly in the mix. Listen, Kyle McCord, no matter where he goes, he's going to be in a worse situation than he was at Ohio State. So it's just hard to see him having a better year. Maybe with development, we'll see, but him going to Miami, that smells like a 7-5 type season, maybe 8-4. Will Rogers, it has already been rumored that Will Rogers will go to Washington, so we'll see if that comes to fruition. I would not expect Washington to have that good of a year next year. I'm kind of down on Will Rogers. He's been in college now for like 4 years. He did not have that great of a season. I understand the coaching was terrible. They fired their head coach during the season. And then you do have Tyler Van Dyke to Mississippi State just kind of thrown in there. We'll see where Van Dyke ends up going. Grayson McCall possibly to UCF, depending on their quarterback situation with Plumlee. I wonder if Plumlee's out of eligibility. But either way, those are just interesting predictions. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this FSU thing. My prediction is I do think the Cotton Bowl will happen with Georgia, but it'll be so ridiculous. All of the top FSU players, anyone that's draft eligible, will sit out. The game will be, remember that one game, what was it, Florida versus Oklahoma, when all of the Florida players sat out? It was a New Year's Six game, and the game was just meaningless. Like, Oklahoma ended up winning. Spencer Rattler played in that game as a true freshman, but nobody really, it was kind of like a joke. That's exactly what I think this is going to be, and FSU is going to kind of utilize the fact that they got screwed as a way to say, listen, we're not facing Georgia, when in reality, I think if FSU has the exact same team that that they had against Florida going against Georgia, because remember, they had their backup quarterback against Florida. I think they'd lose by 35 points. But now, at least if you're FSU, you can kind of hide behind, oh, Johnny Wilson's not playing, Keon Coleman's not playing, all of these other players outside of Jordan Travis, because obviously the committee used Jordan Travis's injury to keep them out. But if all these other players don't play, it doesn't matter what happens, because you can't say, oh, you got crushed by Georgia, you would have gotten crushed by Michigan, because we didn't have all of our players versus Georgia. We didn't try versus Georgia. We're boycotting. They can kind of utilize, that little tactic as a way to, I think Georgia would crush them pretty much no matter what, but at least you can kind of say, no, we're boycotting. That's the reason we're going to lose. And I don't think it's going to be an actual boycott to where the game doesn't get played because of the TV money, but I do think a lot of FSU's top players will be out for that one. But we will see. Either way, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.